Welcome. Do you think you are safe in your homes? Sometimes the walls themselves hold secrets we cannot imagine. Get ready, because tonight is not like any other night. On the outskirts of a remote village stood an old orphanage called the House of Hope, but it had now become nothing more than an abandoned nightmare. The orphanage was once a refuge for children who had lost their families to wars and epidemics. At first, the place was filled with life, with the laughter and cheerful voices of children echoing through the hallways, and the attached garden witnessing their play and running about. But on one dark night, 50 years ago, this place turned into the scene of a horrifying crime whose full details were never revealed. That fateful night descended in eerie silence. The sky was covered with thick clouds, and the wind howled, producing sounds resembling the wails of lost souls. The children huddled in their rooms, unaware that something dreadful was heading their way. By morning, the villagers found the orphanage soaked in blood. Everyone inside, children and caretakers, had perished in what was described as a gruesome manner. Their bodies were mutilated, and the signs on their corpses suggested unimaginable suffering before death. Despite extensive investigations, the events were never explained, and no evidence surfaced to clarify what had occurred. After that horrific incident, the orphanage was closed, left as a silent witness to a tragedy that continues to haunt the village. Now, people avoid approaching the place, and tales are told of children's cries heard on dark nights and shadows moving behind the shattered windows. Legend has it that the orphanage director, Master Elias, was a cruel and enigmatic man. The children feared him because of his dark eyes and gruff voice. It is said he performed strange rituals in secret, disappearing into the deep basement beneath the building at night. On a stormy night, the villagers heard horrifying screams from the orphanage, followed by an eerie silence. By morning, all the children were found brutally murdered, their bodies scattered across the rooms, their faces frozen in unspeakable terror. No one could explain what had happened, and the villagers believed the vengeful spirits of the children haunted anyone who dared enter the orphanage. Since then, the building had been abandoned, avoided by all after sunset. Yet, curiosity often led adventurers to disaster. One day, for brave friends, Lillian, Victor, Alexander, and Clara decided to explore the orphanage. They believed the stories were just myths meant to scare people. As night fell, they approached the building, the wind howling and the surrounding trees whispering as if warning them. They struggled to push open the old wooden door and found themselves in a dark hallway reeking of mold. They ventured deeper inside, their footsteps echoing like faint moans. Faded pictures of eerie faces hung on the walls, their haunting gazes illuminated by the dim light from their flashlights, which also revealed strange scratch marks on the floor. Suddenly, the door they had entered slammed shut with tremendous force, emitting a sound like a departing soul. Lillian looked at her companions with fear and whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before anyone could respond, a mysterious whisper spread through the place, speaking in an incomprehensible language that made their hearts race with terror. Victor stepped forward, trying to show courage, but the floor beneath his feet creaked ominously, and a burning smell began to rise from beneath. Alexander murmured, This isn't an ordinary place. Something is watching us. At that moment, chilling laughter echoed, as if coming from the depths of the building. As they walked through the rooms, they noticed that the walls were covered in children's drawings, but they were distorted in a strange and unsettling way. The drawings depicted human-like figures with twisted bodies and faces bearing horrifying expressions. Suddenly, they heard the sound of small footsteps running behind them. They froze in place and slowly turned around, but there was no one there. Clara, with a trembling voice, said, "Maybe it's just our imagination. We should leave this place as soon as possible." Before anyone could move, piercing screams erupted from all around them, seemingly coming from the depths of the rooms. The screams were a mix of pain and terror, so loud that their echoes filled the entire orphanage and chilled the four friends to the core. Suddenly, the ghosts of small children appeared, their bodies covered in blood and their hollow eyes glowing in the darkness. They stood silently, staring at the group with gazes that seemed to pierce into their souls. Victor screamed, "This can't be real!" But the ghosts began to move closer, and with each step, the screams grew louder, and the smell of decayed blood filled the air. Each of them felt as though their hearts were about to stop. Lillian whispered without taking her eyes off the ghosts, "We're in a place that doesn't want anyone here. We need to leave now." Amid the panic, they saw a vivid scene unfold before them, reenacting what had happened on that fateful night. The ghost of Mr. Elias appeared, wielding a massive axe, chasing the children. The ghostly children screamed, and blood poured onto the floors as though it were real. The friends tried to escape, but the doors slammed shut, and the walls began to close in on them. Realizing that the only way out was to descend into the basement, where Mr. Elias had conducted his rituals, they reluctantly made their way down a winding staircase. At the bottom, they found themselves in a room filled with strange symbols and the decaying corpses of children. Suddenly, the ghost of Mr. Elias appeared before them, his glowing red eyes emanating pure malice. They tried to fight him, but every attempt failed. The ghosts of the children drew nearer, and with every step, the shadows around them grew thicker. The walls began to drip blood, and the air became saturated with a pungent, acrid smell, like burning flesh. The ground beneath their feet turned sticky as though it were trying to swallow them whole. Alexander grabbed an old, rusty axe he found in the corner of the room and attempted to break the basement door, but every strike unleashed more harrowing screams, as if the axe was stabbing the very spirits of the children. Suddenly, the strange symbols on the walls began to glow with a deep crimson hue. The ghosts of the children appeared again, but this time they were different. Their bodies transformed into grotesque creatures, their skin riddled with holes, and their voices a chilling blend of childlike sobbing and monstrous growling. They surrounded the group, moving slowly, as though savoring the anticipation of their attack. Clara, who had a deep wound on her leg, began to notice something abnormal. The wound wasn't ordinary. It pulsed as if alive, and dark lines started spreading from it, creeping toward her heart. It was clear that something was trying to take control of her from within. While the group frantically searched for an escape, Mr. Elias reappeared, but this time his form was monstrous. His body was enormous and deformed, with elongated arms ending in razor-sharp claws. His voice echoed with a mixture of agony and malevolence as he raised his hand and summoned even more shadows, which surrounded the friends, threatening to consume them. Lillian screamed, "We can't escape! We have to find a way to stop him!" She remembered a book she had seen in one of the upstairs rooms earlier and told the group about it. The problem was that they were trapped in the basement, and the pulsating, shifting walls seemed determined to keep them there. While Alexander and Victor fought off the shadows, Lillian and Clara tried to climb the crumbling staircase. But the ghosts pursued them relentlessly. The farther they got from the basement, the fiercer the attacks became. Finally, they reached the room containing the book. It was bound in what looked like human skin, and when Lillian opened it, a chorus of the children's anguished cries echoed from its pages. Lillian began reading from the book in a trembling voice, but with every word she uttered, Mr. Elias screamed, and his body started to disintegrate gradually. As she continued the ritual, the room began to shake violently, and the walls started crumbling as if the entire building was about to collapse. As they moved away from the orphanage, they began to hear the screams of children echoing inside their heads, as if the curse unleashed in the orphanage hadn't ended but had instead attached itself to them, destined to haunt them forever.